I love printing. I love printing. I love it. I love printing. Hey everybody, want to welcome you back to another session with me, Warren Werbit, printer to printer. Today I'm fortunate enough to have Jamie Barbieri of the PDI Group. He's the president and CEO. They are one of the largest printers, privately owned independent printers in Canada. I've known Jamie for a long time. I would also venture to say, my thoughts, that they're probably right up there as one of the best printers in the country as well, in terms of the quality of work they do, the technology that they sit on, and the culture that they have created within their company. Wow, pleasure. So welcome, Jamie.
Thanks, Warren. Thanks for the great introduction. Thank you.
Hey, that's what they pay me no money for. So that's perfect. Before I go into my questions, I thought maybe you just want to give my viewer, I think this week I'm up to 14 viewers, but maybe you want to let them know what it is that you're doing and how things are.
Sure. So the PDI Group, as you know, Warren, we've been around since 2007, and really PDI came to life as a consolidation of sorts with three printers that got together and formed the PDI Group: Phipps, Dixon, and Integria. Since then, we've grown our company across Canada. Happy to say that not only are we in commercial printing, but we're also in distribution, large format printing, graphics, and basically we've gone with a model that is essentially we wrap ourselves around our customers. We have an excellent blue chip customer base, and through the years our growth has been mainly by acquisition and diversification. And always along the lines that, you know, we take the relationships that we have a little bit further by adding pieces to it that permit us to grow around the customers and the customers' requirements.
Yeah, I think you've done good with that. So actually, I'll just touch on the Phipps, the Dixon, the Integria, the coming together of those companies. I mean, Dixon Litho, way back when Bill Dixon was there, he was the king in the city. He was the king of charging, and he was the king of quality because he was always up on it. Yeah. And then Phipps was a great pre-press house, and Gaetano was doing wonderful stuff. And then you were fortunate to have Integria, which was the offshoot of the old Bound.
That's correct.
What a name from the past. So yeah, you've had some. You definitely had a good head start putting some great organizations together.
Yeah, I like to think we were a little bit ahead of our time in our thinking when we put the three companies together. We really we knew that going forward, this industry was going to be one of consolidation because it's it's very fragmented. So we figured, you know what, we may as well be on the consolidating side. So we took our lumps. I remember in 2009 when we actually moved the three companies into one location. Not an easy task, as you can well appreciate. There's three cultures to put together, lots of equipment to deal with. So it put us to the test, but we made it through, and it's been we've been very fortunate since then to
you talk about culture. So a couple of years ago, you took PDI large format and you got a couple other companies together. That great idea to put the three together because you're stronger as one than you were three separate. But those were three completely different companies. How did the culture go? Because I know from my past experience, when we've done a couple acquisitions, the financing was easy, the purchase was easy, dealing with the owners was easy. The culture was the hardest part and the part of the most unknown.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the integration, when you do something on that scale, it's not easy because you're dealing with a lot of intangibles, people's egos, three different cultures of not only in terms of the management and the foresight of each company, but you're also dealing with three different workflows, inherently three different ways of doing things that you have to sort of agree to take on one direction and then get that done. Luckily enough, we had a lot of experience when we put our own companies together, so we were able to set it up in such a way that it made the process a little bit easier. But to be truthful with you, it was obviously there was some casualties along the way because at a certain point in time you really do have to adopt a single direction and a common view, and sometimes those are the most difficult concepts to get across. And you can try, but at a certain point in time, you really do have to pull the trigger and say, you know what, this is the way it's going to be. And we did that. So it wasn't without pain, but I would would venture to say that it was successful, in that the company came together and we grew, almost double to where we were when we started in a very short amount of time. Unfortunately, this darn COVID came along and sort of stopped us in our tracks. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for us to reflect on what we've done, and also to think about what's going to change going forward and to adapt. Really, that's where we have to put our focus now.
Yeah, well, the one thing about COVID, everybody's in the same boat. So it's not like anybody's further ahead or further behind. It's all kind of craziness. 2 years ago, you then went and put the large format together, which we mentioned, set up a new facility in Laval, which I'm embarrassed to say I haven't been there yet, but I'm going to come as soon as COVID ends.
You're welcome.
From the quick little video that I saw and just being around the building, it's quite impressive.
Yeah. So there again, what we did is we adapted our model in commercial print. We, one of the unique features that we offer our market is this whole concept of a one-stop shop, and we feel it's so important today. Cycle times are so critical that you need to be able to turn things around, especially if you're going to hit the retail business. And then cost is also, it's whether you like it or not, it is such a critical component of the entire operation that it needs to be dealt with. So what we did is we sort of mimicked what we did in commercial print, and we put the three companies together under one roof, a 60,000 square foot facility, very modern, all new technology, and then focused on bringing process and standard operating procedures to a point where we can be predictable and consistent in our product and our productivity. Today we have, the operation is about a $15 million operation. We have just about 70 employees working full time, and yeah, it took a while to get here, but it's knock on wood, it was a success, and I hope that it continues to be a success.
Oh, I'm sure it will. So I have a tough question, and I'll ask it because you guys, and I'm sure people are just interested just because a lot are in the same boat, but as you guys built up the large format, you were doing a lot of retail, you've took on a lot of retail clients, and then, like everybody, the retail has kind of crashed.
Yeah.
How are you adapting, or where do you potentially see things going, if anywhere, or what do you hear from some of your customers because you're communicating with them?
It's not an easy question to answer, Warren. The retail part of our business, it's more than 50% of what we do here. So we took it on the nose pretty good when demand started to fade, and due to COVID, we were fortunate enough for the first 3 or 4 months of the COVID pandemic to be able to offer and convert our shop into protection, screen protectors, visors, directional signage, and all that. But it lasted. It was great for us because we maintained contact with our customers. We served a purpose. But in reality, once the supply chains reopened to China and all the rest of it, we can no longer compete in that space. So we had to reorient our focus somewhere else. So what we've been doing is staying very close to our retail customers, but we've been concentrating, around the construction part of the business. And when I say construction, not necessarily construction in the sense of people building buildings and that sort of thing, but dealing within the construction requirements of these retailers. When you go into a store, there's a lot more than just stuff that hangs from the ceilings or goes in the windows. There are fixtures. There are operational things that need to get done, and our focus has been put there so that we have something to fall back on, and it's proven to work. So far, it's been working out well. It's not easy; it's a different game, but it's going well. The other thing too is we've expanded our focus to you've heard recently we acquired a company out west, which now takes our large format offering national. And so we've also built this distributive print platform, which takes us to a level of competition that doesn't have as many players. So
right.
And what we're offering really is the ability to produce large format sign and display work on both ends of the country. And as you know from your experience in that domain, shipping large format stuff is not a lot of fun. A lot of times transport is a lot trickier than actually printing, and sometimes even worth more than the printing. So this whole idea of printing closer to where it's going is something that seems to be a welcomed advantage for our retail customers.
Oh, I think it'll be great. I remember I was down in, I won't use anyone's name, but I was down in the South at a large format printer a few years ago, and they were doing some display work for Home Depot. And I remember them telling me that I think the contract was about $700,000. The shipping was $310,000 across the entire country. I also know in Canada, you know, FedEx and UPS is listening. They should listen because you should adjust your prices. But it's easier to get a flat rate for volume across the US, where in Canada, they're still sticking us to zones and distance and weight.
Yeah, so, you know, we've had to take a really, really hard look at that. And to your point, what we do now, having the facility in Vancouver and also in Quebec, if we do have to ship out there, what we do is we consolidate shipments and we send it LTL.
Right.
And then, you know, to our warehouse there or to our facility there, and then we rebuild inventory as, you know, as per what the client needs in terms of retail operations on demand. It's so much easier and it's a lot less costly. And, you know, we lose a lot less freight. You know, you have to remember when you ship through FedEx or Purolator or any one of the big guys, you know, you have a high percentage of product that gets damaged or lost. And it's difficult to deal with that when a store is opening or there's a promotion that needs to be done and there's no material to be had. So it's
and unfortunately, you know, the clients have no mercy, even though you're not driving the truck.
That's right.
Right. And today I find that with all this just in time, people are not really leaving any room for any potential situation to arise, whether it's man-made or not.
That's correct.
And then everybody just goes into straight panic mode. You know,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's crazy. How your employees during COVID? Have you been able to keep most of them, or how's that been?
So we were a little bit different than most when COVID hit. Rather than laying off a lot of people, what we did is we asked for a voluntary reduction of 25% from everybody, management, ownership, sales, the entire company. And what we did that for was to keep everybody, to try to keep everybody at work. But the reality is, you know, a couple of months into it, whether you like it or not, your sales volume takes a hit, 30, 40%. Then all of a sudden you don't have the room to keep everybody there. Luckily, the CERB came in, you know, just around that time.
Right.
So we went to that plan as well. And today we are still down probably about 15% in terms of our employee count. Not so much that they're laid off, but we still have folks that are on reduced work hours. And we are working with the Canadian program for work sharing to try and make up that difference on the side. You know, it's really a balance between balancing your costs with what, you know, your sales volumes are going to be. So I'd like to think we've been doing a good job at it, but it hasn't been easy, even to be honest with you. And there have been a few casualties, obviously, and there's some folks, you know, that are high risk that can't be exposed. So we've tried to make it as easy for those employees concerned with health to work from home, for example. To change the way they do their jobs so that we can keep them on board. And yeah, it's been okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to look at COVID because, you know, people say to me, how you doing? And I always say, oh, I'm living the dream. You know, it's like, who would have expected? But I'm trying to look at COVID in the positive ways. And some of the positive ways, I know it's really difficult today because half the people are going crazy and I'm not starving or anything like that. But the positive ways are families are coming together. People are eating. You might not like your kids all the time, but you're certainly eating with them more now. But if I take that into the workplace, for some companies, it's bringing them together. People within the companies are more concerned for people in the company, perhaps that they never cared about or thought about. I'm just hoping that when we go back to whatever the new normal is, that we in our life don't take this for granted, right?
Yeah.
Because
we've all learned. Yeah, I think we've all learned a lot from the experience. I mean, let's face it, the print industry was perhaps a little archaic in the way it was set up for the younger generation that we can't seem to attract. And I think we just learned something from this whole COVID experience, you know, that you can, in fact, work from home. It's possible to work with flexible schedules and to give folks a little bit more, less rigidity, if you like, to get their work done. So certainly from a technology standpoint, I mean, we're doing a Zoom today. In the past, you probably would have come to my office. We would have never thought to meet this way.
Right.
But this is so efficient in terms of making the most of people's time. So it's, I think we learned from this, and I think going forward, for sure, things are not going to be the same, but I think it's going to be better, I think, in the long run, once we get over the crunch.
Oh, well, you mentioned the industry being old a little. So I think, and I've been on a lot of Zoom calls in Europe and everywhere and just listening to a lot of people. And I don't chuckle because it's not funny, but it is a little bit because everybody in our industry has now been forced to step up to the plate, where if you weren't doing any storefronts, if you didn't have a good MIS system, if you didn't have a good workflow before, and we all know from way back that you needed all of that stuff, you're forced to do it today and either ramp it up really quickly, or you're going to find out that it's going to be really hard to go forward. I don't think everyone has to be selling online, because not everyone's selling business cards. And I still think most jobs, you still need to talk to somebody if you want them to come out right.
That's for sure. And I think you hit a good point there, Warren. It's not only the change in the way we are going to meet and speak and liaise with our customers, but the whole concept of technology in our industry and using technology to get a handle on information handling and that sort of thing. And even from the outside coming in, if you think of what's happening with security, IT security and the like, we've been taught a very valuable lesson in terms of paying attention to what IT means for us. We're not, we don't market ourselves as being, very sexy for technology, but at the end of the day, we depend on systems and networks, and they have to be protected. And I think everybody's come to realize that. We've probably neglected that part of our CapEx for a couple of years, and now we're playing a little bit of catch up.
Yeah, the IT is important. I laugh at the IT though. The IT is really important, and if you're doing mailing and you're handling more people's information, it's really important, confidential. I know that in Europe they've got some crazy rules and some crazy laws. In the US they're working on it, but I remember customers saying to me, "So what kind of security do you have?" And I would just kind of break out laughing, and I'd say to them, "I apologize, but like when Walmart and Nassau get hacked, how do you want me to answer that question? At what level of security?" Because when somebody wants you, and then I'd say to a customer, I remember you have to tell even customers, it's like, "Guys, why are you giving me their social insurance numbers in the data file? I don't need it."
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're right. I mean, I think from that perspective, the persona, the implication is that, we'll never be able to spend as much as banks would spend on IT. But I think the takeaway for us anyway has been that we need to be prepared in case we get a cyber attack or something, that we have a business continuity or disaster recovery plan in place to get us back up and running, and so our business can continue to grow. Not every company in our industry has that. And so if you do run into a situation where your systems are down for 2, 3, 4 days, it doesn't take long for your business to walk out the door, because they can't wait.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's more along those lines that I think we need to be a little more savvy.
For my Canadian viewers that are listening, I wanted to ask you what's just an update. What's going on with the Canadian Printing Industries Association?
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I used to be involved to some degree, but it was always a little weak in Canada. Most of my interest in learning and participation of stuff has been in a lot of US organizations, which have been great. But when I think about today and what's going on, I sit on the board of AP Tech, and I used to be part of ID Alliance. And the minute all this COVID stuff started happening, the U.S. associations or Printing United, they started supplying their members with all kinds of information. And I felt, because in Canada, we don't really have a great thing, that the print companies were lacking. And I'm thinking maybe that's a great opportunity to use as an excuse or a reason why we should pull together, because you just mentioned the disaster recovery plan. I know companies in the States that have 40-foot trailers and generators lined up because their contracts are big and they got a million square feet. I don't know many people that are set up like that in Canada, but perhaps with the Canadian Printing Industries Association, I'd be happy to participate, by the way. But if we could bring people together, people could have their own disaster recovery plans with other associate members where it's all secure and safe, because today, a lot of the conversation I've been listening and hearing is there's a lot more where printers could work with printers because we can't all afford every piece of equipment.
It's funny you mentioned that, Warren, and back to my Bound days in the early 80s and the 90s, I picked up on the difference between the way we do business in Canada and the way the Americans do business. In the States, every printer talks to every printer. There are no secrets. There's this just willingness to share information and best practices. And I think the Canadian industry, for the most part, has come a long way since then, but we've still got some work to do. And I agree with you that I think we should talk more amongst ourselves to stick together when we have a crisis. And COVID, for sure, is one of those instances where there would have been just a phenomenal outpouring. And to your point, several of us that are active in the Canadian printing industry have collaborated, and we have used each other, to help produce jobs, to offer contingency plans in terms of redundancy of services and stuff and the like. But I think there needs to be a more formal role there, and the Canadian Printing Industries Association, for sure, is the vehicle that could be that voice, that national voice that puts it all together. Richard Cohenhoven, president of Hemlock Printers, is the new president of the CPIA, and unfortunately, COVID hit at a time where we were just in the implementation of our strategic mission, and it got stalled. But I think what you'll see in the next couple of months is this emergence of a plan that is based on collaboration and all of industry stakeholders coming together for the better of the industry. And within that context, you're going to see a lot of information sharing and peer groups being set up so that we can all benefit from each other's experiences. Of course, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't force them to drink. So I think the fact that a national association does it, I think it may be easier as opposed to a regional one, where people are talking to each other that are not necessarily competing in the same area. So that may be a way of getting it done a little quicker. But your point is very valid.
And I hope, I have always been a member of one or two different peer groups, generally in the States, because in Canada there really wasn't much. But and I try to promote to people, not any group, and I'll help put groups together for people, but what you learn sitting in the right group with the right people, sharing the right information. Number one, you now know you're not alone.
Yeah, well, it's invaluable.
Because we're all living the same, when it's miserable for all. There's no secrets, right?
That's right.
And I just always found, like you were saying, over in Canada, everybody's just a little more guarded for no reason. I used to tell people, come to my shop. First of all, I could never show enough people my shop because I was so excited and proud. And I'd say, come, and they'd say, well, do you really want me in there? And I'd say, listen, you walk through the shop. If you see something on the floor and you go call the customer after and you get the order, shame on me for not doing a good enough job. I don't look at people as stealing my customers. I look at it as me losing them because we didn't have them engaged enough.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's. I think there's a willingness there to collaborate from that perspective. I don't. I think we've grown, and certainly again, I think this COVID thing has taught us a lesson.
Right.
And I'm really hopeful that you'll see a convergence of those minds coming together, because I think there's a lot of great printers that do a lot of great things, and there are some secrets that companies have in terms of know-how that should be protected and all the rest of it. But as an industry, if we really want to grow and protect our businesses going forward, and help to create an environment where people want to work in our industry, we got to start talking to each other and collectively making this thing look a lot better than it is. Because I think it's an image problem. It's not that I think the industry is a lot stronger than what it was. It's not sick anymore, but I think we just don't do a great job marketing it.
We still have that old man, drag your feet. It's like I've been talking to people, and people now have been saying, we got to do marketing, we got to do this, we got to do that, and I'd say to people, it starts at the top in your company. If your owner's CEO doesn't buy in, isn't excited by it, don't waste your time, because you'll never follow up, you'll never get it done, it'll never be executed.
Right.
Everything that Pizzazz always did, that we did, was because I had like ants in my pants and I loved the color and I love this. And I mean, the one thing that every person ever said to me after a meeting, I might not have gotten the work, but the one comment they had was, we've never met anyone so passionate about print.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
that was a compliment, maybe not the order.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, I think that, you know, if you come into this business, if you're in this business, it's because you really do like the business and you're passionate about it. If you're griping about the business, well, you can gripe about any business, you know, but you're probably not in the right state of mind to be, you know, positioning your business for any type of growth, because the problem, like to your point, is at the top. So,
well, when I hear people in the industry talk negative, I just look at them and I just say really simply, if you're not happy, get the hell out, because all you're doing is ruining it for the rest of us, and it's not going anywhere. It's going to completely change and evolve nonstop, but there's always something to be had, right? So it's always good. But yeah, so I'll finish just with if there's anything that I could do to help out with the association. Now that I'm a little more neutral to everybody, I think I could add some, have some good input. Peer groups, happy to help. And I hope everybody listening, and it doesn't matter what country you're in, you need to join a peer group. You should be with other printers. You need to know you're not alone. And by the way, you mentioned before company secrets. There are not that many secrets in our industry. Maybe the way you make little books and stuff, but for the most part, it's like companies when they go, oh, we made a special coating. Yeah, okay. Right. Sun Chemical got together for your $11 million in sales and they came up with a special UV coating just for you. I don't think so.
No, I think you're right. I mean, but there are some things that, people probably don't want to share, and that's fine. But I think, as it goes for the business itself, we should work more collectively to make sure that what we want out of our business, we guide the industry to give it to us, in terms of whether it's labor and access to labor, attracting young talent, government help. COVID again is a great example. We not necessarily directed at the printing industry itself, but on behalf of the associations, I did, and I think Richard did as well, in terms of and several other people that are in the industry, help remind the government that, hey, printing is an essential service. And if you look around, one of the most predominant things that you saw during this whole COVID time is instructional signage.
Right.
And that's printed material. So you know what? Packaging, I mean, it's the industry was on fire in certain sectors through all this and continues to be. And printing supports that. And I think it's important for folks to realize, that we're not, to your point, an antiquated industry where everybody's got, ink under their fingernails. It's not that. It's a high-tech business now. And it's
not only is it high-tech, the one thing that I always loved about it when I joined was every person that I met in business was a potential customer in some way, because they had a need for a booklet, a letterhead, a brochure, a large format, a something. Now there's digital media involved in what we're doing and the whole PDF thing. So even I would say to everybody out there who's young today, great industry we're in because we deal with everyone. And the one thing that I used to do is when I used to go to customers, Bell or whatever airplane company, I would ask them for a tour of the factory. I saw how they made helicopters. I saw how they put planes together. How they made hot dogs at Lester's hot dog factory. Not that you want to see that, but it also goes to our learning and growing and knowing what goes on in the real world, not just, it's like that show, How They Make That. If you don't watch it, actually the best example is print. People see a white piece of paper, it comes out and it's all colored. So we are in an amazing industry with a lot of fun stuff where the salespeople get to learn and talk to 100,000 industries, not just one.
Yep.
I think it's really, really good. So cool. So I'm going to cut this short. Well, short, it's not so short, but we can go on and on and on. I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you've been pretty busy lately. Look forward to getting together with you when we're allowed to get together again.
You bet. Absolutely. Thank you, Warren.